Hey there, how there, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to another Degrassism. It's not really a Degrassi unpopular opinion piece. It's just basically a straight out Degrassism. Just a topic I tend to do that I don't need an unpopular opinion. So today we're going to be talking about what if season 4 was different, and would that have changed the whole complexion of the show in perspective? So anyhow, everyone knows what, yeah, like all 18 seasons, of course, 14 from Degrassi and then 4 next class, is basically defined by its storyline. Season 1's storyline was basically Emma and Toby and Ashley just trying to get along and all that. Like Emma's point of view is being a bit wrong. Season 2 will be remembered mostly for Emma having issues with Spike dating Mr. Simpson, her teacher, and Spike getting pregnant and wanting to aborting it, and Emma trying to stick her nose into things because she thinks she's doing the right thing, but she's not. Season 3 is defined by a lot of things, including Rick being with Terry by being emotionally and physically abusive to her. And of course, striking her head on the rock. And then, of course, also the love triangle between Craig, Ashley, and Manny, and Emma dealing with her father. Season 4, of course, we all know is remembered for Rick. Although there were some good storylines in season 4. Paige's trouble with men because Dean got off scot-free for raping her. Spinner cheated on her with Manny. Rick came back to the school, seemingly with no strings attached. And, Mr. Olander kind of tried to put her under the bus for the relationship, but then he had to confess. Season 5 is defined by Emma's eating disorder and Liberty's pregnancy, which a lot of people hated on because of why would Liberty get pregnant? Season 6, basically JT's death. That's what season 6 is mostly remembered for. And Sean coming back to school and breaking up Emma for good. Season 7 is the graduation season of Emma's class and all that. And, Spinner getting cancer and Darcy having her being raped by a someone at a ski party, and then basically getting Simpson into a whole lot of trouble. Season 8 is defined by the new class, Ali, Claire, Connor, and Casey, and the Shep being a dickwad and all that, and Jane trying to get on the football team, getting harassed, and Shep refusing to do anything, saying no special treatment. Season 9 is defined by Hatzilackles coming back for the Shep, Peter's 48-hour drug habit, Mia leaving, and Jenna taking Casey away from Claire. Season 10 is defined by Adam coming in, becoming the first trans character in Degrassi history, and how Audra was basically a mama bear who was protecting her cubs, even though that Drew was trying to confess his role in the boiler room with Valley. And of course, Fagus Knight almost kills Snake off, in a sense. Season 11 defined by... Season 11? I don't know what season 11 was defined by. Honestly, I don't remember. Season 12 was defined by Cam, his road to self-destruction and basically how he ended it. And Sig should get some blame for Cam's problems, but not all of it. It wasn't. It was just the cherry on the sundae and all that. Like, Sig didn't know what Cam was feeling. Season 13 was defined by Zoe coming into Degrassi and causing trouble, making Maya unhinged, and also Miles. And of course, Zoe being on a rape trial, and Becky protecting Zoe by for basically telling on her brother and all that, and her family probably ostracizes her. Season 14 is defined by Degrassi nudes, of course. Also had Claire and Eli caring for a baby, but Claire miscarries. And then next class, season 1, defined by Hunter's rage that the gaming club was ruined by the feminists, and basically he goes bonkers. Season 2, defined by the Frankie racist poster and how the volleyball team actually threw her under the bus. They kind of laughed at it, and they approved this idea. Season 3, defined by Maya trying to get back to things after the bus crash, and Miles trying to honor Tristan. And then season 4, Maya's breakdown, and Esme as well. So, season 4 of Degrassi is defined by the Rick Murray situation. Everyone knows that. Although, it must be said that the first few episodes of season 4 actually didn't have any mentions of Rick around. The first one, I can't remember, yeah, the season 4 premiere, which was a two-parter, dealt with Paige finally getting her justice in a trial against Dean for raping her and all that. And Spinner is on Paige's side. And then Craig gets a guitar in the subplot. Well, he gets money from his dad and spends on a guitar, even though Joey wants Craig to give him money for his business because his business is falling apart. I mean, it is understandable. I mean, Joey should have said, well, why don't you just pay rent or something like that? Because then you get all the amenities and all that. But, it's kind of weird asking for a teenager for rent. Like, Craig's not, well, Craig is 18, but still, no, 16. And there also was a scene in that episode that actually may have made some sense. In the background, when Ashley and Craig are talking about treble clefs and music, Radich and Armstrong are talking in the background. Armstrong needs some supplies. Radich says, I don't have much for the budget, but don't worry, I'll get to you. And Armstrong wants the supplies. And a lot of people said that actually might have been the catalyst for why Rick came back to Degrassi, because Radich needed to boost the academic grade high so that maybe they qualify for funding. I don't know. Yeah. And then, of course, Paige not getting her justice. Even Dean's lawyer was shocked at the result. And that's hard to believe, but yeah. So Paige, crashes Spinner's car into Dean's car for revenge and takes the rap for it. And then the next episode is when Marco and Alex run for student council. Alex threatens to out Marco to everybody, but then decides at the last minute not to do it. Marco wins the election, allows Alex to be his student council vice president. Great. And in that subplot is when Emma and Chris have feelings towards each other. They try to remain friends because, they broke up over the summer. And then Manny tells Emma about Liberty being with Chris. And Emma feels like she should stop it. And Manny says, okay, well, then you want Chris back. Actually, that's not the point. What is the point, Emma? The point is, I don't want, if Chris goes out with Liberty, what does that say about me? And Manny chews her out, and rightfully so. I mean, you do these stupid causes, well, seemingly stupid causes, as Raj puts them, and you don't care what people think of you. Why? People wouldn't say anything about you. They just hate on you like normal. And that loses her Manny and Liberty as friends, and that kind of leads to a lot of things. And then, of course, Rick comes back, no strings attached. Everyone's mad at Radich and themselves, so they decide to do mob justice with the Orange Ribbon campaign, using it as a sign to get rid of Rick, but they can't. Emma protects Rick, but Rick thinks that Emma loves him, but Emma says he did it out of pity. She did it out of pity. She even told him. And then, of course, you had many other episodes dealing with Rick and all that. Of course, Time Stand still pops up. Everyone knows about that episode. And then, the aftermath of Rick's death and how everyone went through it. Like, I mean, Sean left for Wasaga to do his PTSD. I mean, he would never have faced any charges with Rick's death and all that. Even if Rick's parents had said something, I think that the police would probably have protected Sean and basically said that, the gun was pointed at his direction and that he was just protecting someone, self-defense and all that. Um, you know, Spinner, gets rightfully expelled. He blabs out. The question on my mind is, well, what if Spinner didn't say anything? Would he have been caught? I don't know. But, Spinner knew he had to do a redemption song. So good on him, even though people hate on them. Emma, of course, being promiscuous, going down the ravine with Jade, trying to fix her problems and all that, because it was a problem she couldn't solve, and she was basically in her own head. People were trying to help her, but walking eggshells around her because they knew that Emma was fine all the time, but not so much. And Emma kind of admits that she should not have been with Rick in the Rick situation. And then, of course, Raj gets turfed. I think, maybe he was given a shot after the shooting to solve the problem, but unfortunately, he screwed up the aftermath, and that was it. The school board had enough. I hopefully in a month I see Dan Woods, but I don't think so. But anyway, yeah. So season 4 is defined by Rick Murray. Everyone knows that. I mean, look at season 4. You had Paige. You had her problems with the guys, as I said. Marco not allowed to donate blood because of the homosexuality thing, and him complaining. But Hatzelackles doesn't do anything about it. And of course, we know the final 2 episodes. The Kevin Smith episodes that he basically gets his fanfic with Caitlin and breaks up Joey and Caitlin, and Craig gets diagnosed with being bipolar because the apple doesn't fall far from the tree with his dad and all that. But yeah, of course, I posed a question to Reddit uh, 21 days ago, and this is taped on July 19th, 2026 for context. It says, how would season 4 have gone if the Rick Murray storyline didn't exist? I said, we already saw the episodes with Paige not winning her case over Dean because of lack of physical evidence, then crashing Spinner's car into Dean's and taking the rap. Marco winning the student elections despite Alex threatening to out Marco. Emma losing Manny and Liberty as friends because of her own stupidity with not wanting Chris and Liberty to date. Then came Rick coming back to Degrassi and changing a lot of things. My question to y'all is, what do you think would have happened in season 4, plot lines and characters? Do we still see Caitlin come back from Africa to put a wrench in Joy's life? Do we still see Emma spiral out of control with something she can control? Do we still see Craig's crash out and his bipolar status being confirmed? And for me, does Raj get a better ending? So some people talked about it. Christian said it would have. She would have thought that it would have brought Paige and Spin even closer. I don't know. Some people said, "Damn, I didn't know how season 4, eventful season 4 was until you wrote it all down." OK Teaching says Emma probably would not have hooked up with Jay, and Jimmy would still walk. Well, that makes sense. And then Economy Lobster says Sean wouldn't have a reason to leave, so we could start there. Well, maybe. I think Daniel Clark didn't want to come back to the show. Anyway, some guy actually did some kind of massive paragraph. I'll get to that a little bit later. Yarvin said, I think they would have made some kind of traumatic school moment that would make Sean leave Toronto. Jay was probably still an instigator, leaving Emma troubled. It came up way after the shooting, but Spinner considered torching the school until he was talked out of it. That's right. I forgot about Spinner. That's right. Spinner was upset that he couldn't get his courses back after being expelled. He didn't understand how it was to be expelled and basically you're done for the year. And of course, well, he says it's just unfair. And Hatzelekos did go, what's unfair is that you're indirectly responsible for Rick Murray's death. I think she wanted Rick alive for some reason. But the problem was, if Rick was alive, as I said it many times, is that it would have ruined Degrassi. Degrassi was kind of ruined. I think their budget may have been cut or something. They might have got some punishment for mishandling Rick and all that. Thanks a lot, Radich. But I think that, Degrassi was put in a bigger hole in a sense. But it would have been much worse. Like, Paige would have faced massive ramifications. Emma would have faced ramifications. Lots of people. Raj would have faced legal ramifications, as did many of the staff. I don't think Snake would have. I think Snake would have gotten out of it. But most of all, Spinner and Jay wouldn't even be free. They would be in juvie/jail, and then maybe Alex gets in trouble with that. And then large member says that, yeah, Radish would have retired. But yeah, I think Radish probably would have ended season 4. That would have been it. Because Dan Woods in real life actually had a show called Chop Cut Rebuild in Los Angeles, and of course Degrassi in Toronto. So with Chop Cut Rebuild, he decided to go for that and then basically got rid of Degrassi and all that. I still want to know how much input he had about season 4 and all that. But the fact of the matter is that, yeah, Radish probably would have retired at the end of the year. That would have been better. Dangerous Repeat says, I think we wouldn't have the Kevin Smith stuff because he came to the school because of the shooting. Which means that Caitlin and Joey would still be together. Emma would not have acted out because of her trauma. I think Craig still would have crashed out, but later on. Spinner and Manny could have been together. Sean and Ellie probably would have broken up, but stably. And JT and Liberty would still end up together, but in different circumstances. I don't think he came into the school because of the shooting, because in all honesty, Kevin Smith doing the whole shooting locations for Toronto and, Degrassi getting that spot. I don't think in real life they would have. I think that because of Degrassi's reputation after the shooting, even though that was a traumatic event and they should give it to Degrassi, it actually rewards people and might have schools say, hey, let's repeat the traumatic response and we might get a movie. But I would have thought that Degrassi would have been blackballed in a sense because of what happened and how Radich ruined everything. And the students too. Okay, so now let's go with the massive paragraph from The Dark Heroes. And Dark Heroes did say that they over analyze things. And I'm like, well, welcome to the club. Okay, so here's what Dark Hero said. Honestly, I think not a lot of it would have happened. Caitlin and Joey's stuff would have still remained. I think Emma would have been confused and not knowing what to do with her life. I think she kind of did that. I think Sean leaving kind of sucked, but it was necessary to advance people's stories like Emma and Jay. So I don't think a lot would have changed, but I do have a huge Fury slash hand cannon type idea. Okay? So we keep things the same in season 4. I think the idea was to kill off characters other than Rick. We have Chris and Emma still together. Spinner gets a few episodes with Kendra, and Towers is still around. I think the shooting episodes would have been a 3-parter. Everything from the first part plays out the same, and part of the second episode remains the same. Paige feels bad for Rick, where it makes him snap back to reality, so it stays the same, including the whole bathroom thing. So on his search for the Candy Bandits, you know, Jay's gang, he confronts Jimmy and shoots him in the back, then notices Kendra and shoots Kendra, and then kills Towers because Emma pitied him. And because Emma pitied him, he's hesitant but takes aim at her. And Rick and Sean wrestle over the gun, and then, Chris gets hit with the gun, and so does Rick. That's their headcanon, not mine. One thing I probably get is too much for TV and causes a lot of problems. But anyway, yeah. So Dark Hero says Kendra lives, Chris lives, Jimmy's alive but crippled, Towers is dead, and Rick is dead. Spirit gets a double whammy dealing with 2 people he's connected to being shot. Jay and Alex, for that matter, are hurt over the death of their friend. Emma's hurt because her boyfriend has been shot, and Sean is indirect reason why. And Sean basically pushes him back home. The volunteers. Chris is basically put to another school. Kendra is scared going back to Degrassi. And then knowing about Spinner, wants to leave Spinner. Says that Jimmy will have everything played out. Spinner would be expelled after confessing his part in the prank along with Jay and Alex. Everyone shuts out Spinner, jail time, so on. And he's actually stopped. And, he tries to get back to school, and Hatzalakos gives them another chance. Emma is very lost in not knowing what to do, including the ravine stuff. She's out of control, and Manny actually does bring her back from the brink. She kind of did in real life. Jay would actually be sad and hurt losing his friend, and have a more human feeling, but still be a punk. Alex had to be held responsible for what she had done. She had access to everything, so it was simple to do. She had to get involved. And then practically, Alex gets her GAD. And Terry would recover from her head injury, return to Degrassi after the shooting. It's where she is the one that brings the students together and helps to stop the bullying, and decides to leave at the end of the year. And then the school, Dark Hero said, it remains closed for a few episodes. Craig's bipolar episodes happen during that time and all that. Sean leaves, Emma and Chris break up for good. Radich and the school board go at it. Simpson, Armstrong, and Quan all push for him to be let go. And Hatzalakos gets the job. Okay, that makes sense. There's sense. So, like, he's just saying that, the headcanon is that, they do something similar to the Rick Murray situation. Well, the point of it was, what if Rick was not involved in season 4? But whatever. But, it's hard to believe. And that represents how hard people can get through season 4 and all that without a Rick mention at all, which is not that easy at all. So that's all I've got for this Degrassism. Hopefully more topics will come up soon, but I'm out of ideas. So what can you say? Anyway, I'm Jeff. I'm going to do.